Hello, my name is Carrie, and welcome to Wearables and Shareables. In today's video, we'll be completing part 3 of our series on the Purple Mountains Majesty project bag that we've been working in Tunisian Crochet. Of course, if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, check for links down in the description or in the info card up above. Let's quickly review what we learned in the last video. Last time we learned about reading patterns in Tunisian Crochet, specifically this Purple Mountains Majesty pattern, and we learned about the Tunisian purl stitch. Today we're going to be covering how to fix mistakes in Tunisian Crochet, how to attach the handle, and how to pick up stitches for the second side of the bag. So the last time we were together, I had showed you how to work purl stitches. And remember, that is where we put the yarn in front of the work, go through the front bar only in our net stitch, and yarn over from there. But of course, if I look back at my pattern chart, I'm not currently following this pattern. I would have need to change colors for all of these white spaces. And these are knit stitches in the pattern, and we don't need to purl until we get all the way up here to row number 26. But I wanted to show you how to do your purls in case you were working faster than the pace of my videos. So this leads us perfectly into how to correct mistakes. If I wanted to continue working the pattern the way that it was designed, I would need to take these purl stitches out. So luckily, it's very easy to do in Tunisian Crochet. We're just going to slide our hook back to the first loop on the hook. And then you can take your working yarn, give it a gentle tug, and you will undo all of the stitches. Now, if you need to work back more than one row, you can remove your hook and take your yarn back to the place where you need to fix the error. Just be sure to track how many rows you've taken back on your forward and return pass if you have to go that far, so that you know where to pick back up in the pattern. Now, I've just worked this little sample up because I want to show you how to do the handle attachment in our pattern. I'm not going to work the entire pattern for you. I think it will be a good opportunity for you to do some learning in Tunisian Crochet without that, but I am going to show you how to attach the handle, which we will rely on some of our new pattern reading skills to do. So let's jump over to the pattern and we can take a look at what our handle construction section says. So look for the heading called Creating the Handle. And I have left a little note here that you can use any color of your choice. And in my finished sample, I chose to use my blue color. I just continued on with the sky. So you can see here are the purl stitches we worked for the clouds. And then I just continued using the sky blue color to work the handle there. So let's go ahead and see what our first direction is for completing the handle. Let me move myself out of the way so you can see too. So the first step here, it says TKS 10 stitches. And if you remember back to our learning from last time, you'll know that TKS stands for Tunisian Knit Stitch, 10 stitches. So let's go to our work and follow these directions. I have one loop on my hook so far, and remember that doesn't count just yet. So I'm going to complete 10 Tunisian knit stitches by inserting my hook between the front and back vertical bars and pulling up a loop. I'll collect those loops on my hook and then we'll follow the next direction. So I have 2, 4, 5 done there, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so let's look at our direction one more time. It says 11 loops on the hook. I knitted, or Tunisian knitted, 10 stitches, but I had that one loop to start with. So let's double check and make sure that I have 11. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. All right, now that I have my 10 stitches, I can move to the next part of the directions. It says insert hook as if to make a Tunisian knit stitch, or TKS. Pull up a loop and pull through the next loop on your hook for a slip stitch. So what we're going to be doing here is a slip stitch bind off. We're going to be creating some space for our handle when we're ready with our bag. So I need to insert my hook into the next stitch between those front and back vertical bars, just like I was going to do a Tunisian knit stitch. I'll pull up my loop, but instead of collecting the next loop, I'm going to take the loop I just got and pull it through the last loop on my hook. That is a Tunisian knit stitch, or sorry, slip stitch. So we've just completed one slip stitch. And it says that we need to slip the next 12 stitches for a total of 13 stitches bound off. So let's go ahead and do that here. We will insert our hook into the next stitch, pull up our loop, and then pull it through the loop that is on our hook, the last one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's pause here and just take a look at what's happening. We're binding off these stitches, and we're going to be using this slip stitch bind off later in the project as well. So we have some live loops still from on the right side of our Tunisian crochet hook. These are the first 10 knit stitches that we did. We're binding off this center part because we're going to be creating the loop of the handle over the top of it. And these stitches here are going to make a nice edge for the bottom part of our handle. So that was 5. We need to go to 12. 6, 7, take your time to do this, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That should give us a total of 13 stitches bound off, and we can count them here with these V's. So if I start on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and this 13th one is right here. It's a little bit harder to see because that's where we first started. Okay, so now that I've bound off my 13 center stitches, let's see what we need to do to get to the end of the row. Then it says TKS, or Tunisian knit stitch, remaining stitches, and then LS is for our last stitch, where we put our hook under both loops of the last stitch instead of just through one of the vertical bars. So let's work to the end of the row here. We have one loop on our hook already, and we're going to Tunisian knit stitch. If I can find where I need to insert there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and my last stitch is going to be our edge stitch right there. So now I have 10 live loops or live stitches on the right side of my Tunisian crochet hook. I've got my 13 center stitches bound off, and then I have 11 stitches on the left side of my hook. So let's read the directions for the return pass, and we'll see what we need to do there. Just move myself over so you can see. It says chain 1, pull through 2, and it notes that these little stars are for the repeat. So we'll chain 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, until we get to the point where we only have one loop remaining on this side of the hook. Okay, so here's 1 stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, now at this point we're going to be making a chain so that we can connect both sides of our handle. So in our directions here, you'll see that it says chain 21. This will connect to the other side of the handle with the remaining live stitches. So to chain 21, this is the same as you would do in a traditional crochet project and that we did at the very beginning of this project. We're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Now our work looks something like this. Here are the stitches that we just completed the return pass for. Here's our chain of 21, and here are the live loops that are still on the right side of our crochet hook. Okay, so to connect these two sides, all we need to do is pull the last chain through the first loop remaining on your hook. So I'll show you what that looks like here. I'm just going to scoop my stitches so they're closer together. I'll take this loop that's on my hook here, and I'm just going to pull it through the first loop that was remaining back here, kind of like a slip stitch. Then to continue following the directions, we need to chain 1 again, and then pull through 2 until we have one loop remaining on our hook. So we're going to chain 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, all the way back to the beginning. Okay, and then you can see here that this has created the basic shape of our handle. Those stitches that we bound off in the middle are here, and here's our chain of 21 that we'll be able to pick up our bag from when we're finished following these handle directions. So let's take a look at the forward pass for row 2. It says Tunisian knit stitch, or TKS, 8 stitches. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, we're just going to be inserting our hook the way we have been. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You should have 9 loops on your hook because I didn't count this first one. So we've got 3, 6, 9 loops here. The next part of our direction says to turn the chain. Oops. I just moved my words there. Turn the chain and pull up 21 loops in the back bumps of the chain. This is going to be very similar to what we did when we first started this project with our foundation chain, but instead of using the back loop only, or that top loop, we're going to turn the chain over and identify the back bumps in the chain. So if you're looking at your stitches, this is going to be the center bar. You'll have sort of a V on one side, and on the other side, you'll have 3 little loops, and you want the one that's in the center. Okay, so we're going to start working our way up the chain just by inserting our hook in the first stitch here. There we go. Pull up a loop. Here's my next back bump. I'll insert my hook here. And if you made your chain a little bit tight, just take your time with doing this. There's 2, 3, 4. I'll keep pulling up my loops until I get to the end of the chain, and then I'll meet you back here in a second. All right, so I have 20 loops pulled up on my hook. I'm going to pull up my last loop here, but I wanted to show you that you'll have a vertical bar here. This is where you first made the connection between the 2 sides, and the last back bump is going to be right above that. So here will be our loop number 21. And if you were to continue reading the pattern, it would tell you to work in Tunisian knit stitch to the end of the row. So now I'm going to drop back down into this stitch and pick up the rest of my loops so that we can complete the row. Now this will be when our count changes from 35 loops on our hook. Now we will have more loops. I'm going to say that the count is not terribly important. You just want to make sure that you don't miss any stitches as you're going. So if you want to do the math, you can add your 10 loops that were on the hook to start with, the 21 that we just found, and the last 11 or so from over here. Okay, so, or we can count them as we do our return pass. Now our return pass is going to be the same as we always have been doing. We'll chain 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. So I'll do a few stitches with you. Chain 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then I'll meet you back at the end of this return pass. All right, so that I've just completed the return pass for row 2 of our handle construction, and you can start to see that our handle is taking shape here. So let's go ahead and read row 3 of our directions. Mine says to TKS, or Tunisian knit stitch, 40 stitches. So when I did my math, I came up with having 40 stitches on my Tunisian crochet hook now. So let's go ahead and do this forward pass. We're just going to knit across, or Tunisian knit across all of the stitches. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here again in just a second. Now I have completed the forward pass for row 3 in our handle construction. It's time to complete the return pass. We'll do that the way that we have been throughout the project, where we chain 1 and then pull through 2 back to the beginning. And then we're going to be ready to move on to the last row. So again, I'll see you in just a second. Our handle is really starting to take shape, and we're about to complete the last row. I did include some optional finishing options if you would like to do something special on your handle, but I'll leave that to you to look in the pattern to find those directions. So I'll meet you when I'm finished with my slips and we'll talk about the next step. Once you've slit stitched across all of the stitches to create your handle, you'll have one stitch remaining with a live loop. You can go ahead and cut your yarn here, which I've already done, and you're just going to take your Tunisian crochet hook, pull the tail of it through that live loop, and that will fasten it off. And we'll talk about finishing the bag in the next video, but for now you can just leave this here. So congratulations, you've finished the first side of your bag. Now it's time to work the second side of your bag. The good news is all of the directions are exactly the same. There's just one thing we need to do, which is to pick up the stitches in order to start the second side of our bag. So once you've finished side 1, follow these directions and then go back to your chart to complete side 2 in exactly the same way. So right now I have my little sample with the handle side pointing up. I need to turn it around so that the handle side is facing down, but my little V's are still facing me. So I have the right or the outside of the bag facing me, but I have the handle side facing down. And we're going to talk about where to pick up the stitches so that we can continue working on the second side of the bag. So I've just drawn you a quick little illustration to help us with this. So the first thing is that we need to turn our bag upside down. And if you remember back to when we created our foundation chain, we used the back loop only to make that chain or that foundation chain when we were going to work our first row. Now we are going to be using the front loop only. So if you look at your bag, you should be able to find little lines running across the front of your work. They look something like this. We're going to be inserting our hook into these loops to pick them up here. Okay, so I'll show you that on our bag. And now again, we're going to need to maintain 35 stitches as we work. So as you're picking up your loops, be careful to pick up all 35 of them. Okay, so we've got the first one right here. We just need the front loop only. There'll be kind of 2 strands of yarn together. This one is the front loop, and the one laying kind of behind it is the back bump from our initial starting chain. You can just take a little loop of yarn, put some tension on it so that you can pull up that loop, and there is stitch number 1. Go ahead and drop your tail, find the next front loop only, and sometimes I find that it helps to sort of bunch up the bottom so that those loops stick out a little bit. Here's stitch 2. I can bunch that up again so I can see where to insert my hook. Stitch 3, stitch 4, insert our hook for stitch number 5. Go ahead and work to the end of this row. Be sure that you have 35 loops on your hook when you're finished, and we'll talk about the return pass for this row. Now I've picked up all 35 stitches from the front loop only of our initial foundation chain, and I'm ready to work row 1 on my chart again. So if I go back to the chart here, I can see that I just need to complete a regular return pass with no color changes for this first row. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're working the same way we have been throughout the project by chaining 1 for the first stitch, and then pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2 until you get back to the beginning. When you're finished with that, your bag will look something like this. You'll have a row of work down the center here connecting your 2 sides. Okay, and in the next video I'll be showing you how to wash and block your bag and get ready to seam up the sides and sew in all of your ends or weave in your ends. So thanks very much for watching. Make sure you leave your questions and comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!